Welcome into a very special live episode of the Baseball America podcast. My name's Jacob Rudner. I'm joined right now by Peter Flaherty. We will have more members of the Baseball America crew joining us soon, but for now, it's just the two of us, and we're here to recap the first round of the 2025 MLB Draft. Lots of excitement. Just to cut straight to the chase here, Pete. This is a big day for MLB. And it got funky at the top. We saw some money saving moves. Eli Willlets, the first overall pick to the Washington Nationals. Tyler Bremner out of UC Santa Barbara, the second overall pick to the Angels. And I will ask you just straight off the cuff, what's your general reaction to this whole thing as we get this conversation started?
Well, we had been saying for a while now to kind of expect the unexpected and for it to go haywire, and it could go haywire early. And it certainly lived up to that kind of description with, Eli Willetts at one isn't crazy. I guess coming into the day, potentially many had thought Kate Anderson or Ethan Holiday were the favorites to go there. But Willetts was certainly a strong candidate as well. He'll probably sign for a pretty decent haircut. And then the Angels at two, everyone was kind of wondering what kind of surprise or splash they might have in store. They take Tyler Bremner, right-hander out of Santa Barbara, presumably also on a pretty handsome haircut. And then the rest of the first round, there were various kind of, I don't know if you want to call it slides or surprises, I guess just picks of note that were sprinkled in there. I think what stands out for me, and we can get into it further, Jamie Arnold sliding down to 11. You'd Gavin Keelin at 12, Andrew Fisher going at 20. We could break down every pick, but those are a handful that stand out. I really love Gage Wood at 26 to the Phillies. But it's been a fun and eventful first round and a handful of picks.
Yeah, no, it certainly has. Like you said, some things have gone to expectations, some haven't. I think that the easiest way to go about this, and actually, before I even say what we're going to talk about here first, I will tell everybody who's watching, drop your questions in the comment section. We can see them as we go. For example, from Ryan here, I love what the Dodgers and Orioles did. We're going to get into that here on the show. Drop your comments. We're able to see them. We'll put you on the broadcast. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat, and we would love to have a conversation. We're going to be here for the next little bit as the draft goes on for night one. But before we start answering more questions, Peter, let's go through the top of the draft here, player by player. Eli Willetts, the first overall pick in the draft to the Nationals, out of Oklahoma. An interesting selection. Obviously, one here, like you said, kind of a haircut on the signing bonus. They're able to get under slot with Willetts. We knew that that was going to be a possibility all along. What's your reaction to that pick specifically? And if you could, why don't you give us a little bit of a breakdown on Willetts himself and what the Nationals are getting?
Sure. I'm a huge fan of the pick. I think I said on the staff draft, or at least I hope I said on the staff draft, that Eli Willetts would be my pick at 1-1, even with how much I've been banging the Kate Anderson drum. But I think when you kind of stick these guys into buckets, I'm sure that's a phrase everyone's heard for a while now. He fits into a lot of positives. For starters, he's just 17 years old. He made history tonight as the youngest number one pick ever in the history of the MLB draft. So he's still 17. There's a ton of natural physical projection remaining. Just as he ages, he'll get stronger and kind of fill out a little bit. But he's an above average hitter with this quick and compact swing from both sides of the plate. It's line drives from foul line to foul line. At shortstop, he's a really good athlete. He moves well in either direction. He makes the plays he should. He's got an above average arm for the position. He looks like a lock to stick there. And then as a runner, he's also an above average runner, and it's an instinct, or I guess a tool, that shines on both sides of the baseball, or it comes through on both sides of the ball. In the field, obviously, it helps him laterally and attacking the baseball and all that good stuff. But on the base paths, he's an effective base stealer. And I think with Willetts, the cherry on top is his baseball sense. It is really, really high level, not just for a kid his age, but just in general. He comes from a baseball family. His dad, Reggie, was an outfielder with the Angels for 7 years. He's the associate head coach now at Oklahoma. His brother Jackson has been the starting shortstop at Oklahoma for 2 years. I mean, baseball is in this kid's blood, and you see it every time he takes the field. So, I mean, he checks a lot of boxes from a tool standpoint. He's got a good body. It's kind of, when you talk about the power, he could develop into average power, which I know might not knock anyone's socks off. But when you're looking at an above average hitter at the major league level with average power and an above average defender at shortstop, that's a really appealing and impactful profile. So I think that the Nationals are really thrilled that they got their guy.
No doubt. I think the one thing that will be a part of the conversation here as we move on from the first round will be whether or not the Nationals made the right selection. They have some talent in the organization. They're trending in a direction that is interesting. They just fired their general manager. Is picking Eli Willlets the right move for this club? I understand that he's a good player, and you just went into that in depth. But is he the right player for an organization that maybe could have used a Cade Anderson or a Liam Doyle, or, you name another pitcher who's a little bit more ready and maybe had a faster track to the big leagues?
So I'm of the mindset, especially at the top of the draft, but also through the first however many rounds, you shouldn't be drafting on need. You got to take the best player on your board. So, I mean, if they felt convicted that Eli Willlets was the best player on the board, and it's clear that they did, then he no doubt was the right pick for them. I think that Carlos made a great analogy on our most recent staff draft. This is our Carlos Collazo, fellow draft expert. And it's like any team would love to have a problem or sit there and say that, oh man, like, what are we going to do with all these middle infielders, or what are we going to do with all these starting pitchers? So I think it absolutely was the right pick. They got a potentially high impact big leaguer. Obviously he was the top guy on their board. So I'm with it.
Let's move down. Tyler Bremner. I think this is a really interesting conversation. Tyler Bremner goes second overall to the Angels. We know that the Angels had scouted him extensively throughout the season, arguably more than any other club. So this seems like something that maybe was in the pipeline for quite some time at this point, but it is still interesting nonetheless, because I think that there was a notion perhaps that, other guys were going to be available there. Hold on, I'm going to pause what I'm saying here, and I'm going to boom. Look at this guy, JJ Cooper.
Whoa,
joins the show.
It's like the Stone Cold Steve Austin glass shattering.
It thankfully got quieter here, so we'll try this and see how it works with the internet and all. But I'm here live from the MLB Draft.
There you go. JJ Cooper joins us on the live stream. We're expecting a couple other people. Ben Badler should be with us any second. JJ, what we were just talking about was the Angels selection of Tyler Bremner, number 2 overall. And I thought that was a really interesting selection, and one that maybe will get a little bit more hate than it deserves. There's a lot of chatter about how Bremner had a down year, but we've written at Baseball America several times, including in the last few weeks, that Bremner didn't necessarily have as bad a season as the surface level numbers maybe looked. Go ahead.
He had a down start. Yeah. I think that's a more accurate way to put it. And understandably, because of how this works, the down start led to, Tyler Bremner's having a down year. Then you turn around at the end of the year and it's like, no, he kind of righted the ship, and you all followed it even closer than I did. But it was something where it's hard to say at the end of the year that he really disappointed in any way. I get it if you're like, I thought that they were going to go in a different direction at 2. But Bremner was by draft day, Bremner was very much among that top tier of college starting pitchers. And then it becomes a little bit of eye of the beholder. And I would also say with that Tyler Bremner, I would say along with Anderson and Arnold, Arnold has TJ in his patch, a little bit more significant interest. Those are probably the safest bet. Lockdown there, these are going to be big league starters of that group, and Bremner may be one of the safest of those in many ways.
Well, one thing I think is notable, Bremner over his last 6 weeks of his junior season struck out 74 batters over 43 1/3 innings with just 10 walks. He broke the UCSB career record, for strikeouts. This is somebody who's very polished, and he has, in my opinion, one of the best individual pitches available in the draft in his changeup. It's a double plus changeup. This is a guy who is very polished. He has excellent command of his stuff. A little bit of refinement needed on something like his slider, but he's got a big fastball. He's an athletic mover on the mound, and he's got a big changeup. Peter, what did you think?
I mean, we'd been talking about Bremner at 2 to the Angels, and we'd been kind of mentioning that as a possibility now for some time. And I know that all of us on this live stream right now are fans of his. I love, obviously the stuff is the stuff. But in an age where, at the amateur level, especially, you see more throwers than pitchers, Bremner absolutely fits the description of the latter. He's a plus control guy. It's a ton of strikes. It's a lot of quality strikes. The fastball is a really interesting pitch that sits in the mid 90s. He's got a flat approach angle, which helps it kind of create that rise ball effect when located, especially in the top half of the zone. It's got life through the strike zone. The moneymaker with him is the double plus slider. It's a wipeout pitch against both righties and lefties. He's got an incredibly advanced feel for it. He can locate it in the zone. He can also get empty swings with it outside of the strike zone. The slider, as you alluded to, it kind of needs some tweaking and refining, but it's also flashed above average and looks the part of a viable third pitch. So again, to use that phrase of, bucketing these guys, he's a starter with a ton of now stuff. The strikes are there. And also with a cherry on top with him, the mound presence is excellent. He never gets too high or too low. He's the steady Eddie, calm presence, and consistently goes after guys.
Let's take a break before we go down the list even more and talk about more guys. I want to answer a question here. I think this is a good one from Connor. Least favorite pick so far? JJ, I'm going to go to you first. Do you have a least favorite pick so far?
I'm going to say what the Tigers are doing. We're still, I feel like I'm at act 2 or act 1 of a 3-act movie, right? And we're at the cliffhanger, because I would say that if the Tigers are just playing this straight, right, and these are just their picks, and they're all getting slot, and when it's all said and done, okay, then that would be pretty unconventional to me. So if you wanted to say Yost, I mean, I don't think that we really foresaw, Yost going in the first round. I think that there was thought that Yost would very well, as I think Jacob, you know better than I do, was going to make it to school. It's not that he's not talented, but that fits more. And then when they go with Oliveto as their second pick, that all fits more if there's going to be a and after that. And I would expect that there is going to be. I would expect that we're going to see that they are spreading their money around. But if you're asking me this, I'm really hinging on these so far here, because it may change if it's like, oh, I didn't, but look at what they got after that. They really spread their money around. They've really got a lot of talent here. But right now, that'd be my answer.
Peter?
Oh, man, I hate to be the Humpty Dumpty of the live stream, but I don't really have a least favorite pick. There are some when, as they got announced and as we were finding out about them, they made me scratch my head a little bit more than others. You could point to Mitch Voigt at 38. As you said, Jordan Yost at 24 was also a little bit of an interesting one and kind of one of the first major surprises. But there wasn't a pick in this draft, at least so far, where I was like, oh man, like I really hate that pick. Like I can kind of see what, all 30 of these teams are doing. And I know that anyone listening to this or watching could be rolling their eyes because it's like, get a takeoff. But that's kind of the headspace that I'm in right now. I'd say more have been head scratching as opposed to picks that I dislike.
JJ?
If I could have one other, the one other that I do think jumps out is, and again, this is something where you've got to see the whole.
JJ, we lost you.
JJ has gone on mute unintentionally. He's still on mute, but
go ahead. You're off mute now. No.
Take it from here, Jacob.
JJ is muted, but I will give my least favorite pick so far, Connor, and that is at number 30. Let me just clarify. I really like the player at number 30. I'm not obsessed with the team that he went to. Caden Bodine was a little bit of a head scratcher for me for the Orioles with Adley Rutschman in the house. You're talking about a catcher who doesn't necessarily have a lot of pop on the offensive side, is an excellent defender, but I just don't know, with an organization that has that much money, why spend money on a catcher who I think the three of us and the other BA staffers would agree, has the potential to move reasonably quickly through the minor league system just because of what he is, which is a defense forward catcher, excellent framer, but somebody who's going to be a little bit light offensively. That would be my least favorite pick. Let's keep on going down the board. Seattle Mariners at number 3 overall go with Cade Anderson. If you were going to ask me what my favorite pick so far, that would be among them. Peter, I'll go to you first as we try and unmute JJ. What did you think of the Cade Anderson selection?
I loved it, especially when you look at the developmental pairing with an arm like Anderson and with him going to Seattle. I think that makes this pick all the more exciting. I think no matter which organization would have ended up with Cade Anderson, especially at 3rd overall, I would have been thrilled because he was my top pitcher in the draft for a handful of months right now. But I mean, we've gushed about Cade Anderson for so long. There's physical projection, it's strikes, it's stuff. It's a smooth, clean, and repeatable delivery. He's got a chance for at least 3 above average pitches or better with his curveball, slider, and changeup. And not to, diss the fastball. That's an effective pitch as well. It sits in the mid 90s. It's been up to 96, 97 with carry in the top half of the zone. There's a whole lot of, this is what it looks like with Anderson. And the feel that he has for his entire 4-pitch mix is really impressive. It strikes with all 4 of them. He can land them in all 4 quadrants of the zone. He gets whiffs inside and out of it. It's just a really impressive body of work. And he was recently named our National Pitcher of the Year.
JJ, any thoughts on Cade Anderson?
Again, this is one of the best pitchers of the draft. You saw him, what he did in the postseason. He has a track record of success. He does have a Tommy John injury, Tommy John surgery in his background, which is a risk factor. I know that there are a lot of people who view that and say, see, he's already had it. No, actually, it does up your risk. The risk of you having another injury is not lessened by having Tommy John surgery. It actually is a higher risk in some ways than if you had not had surgery. So, but I think it's a guy who should move very quickly. I think we have a number of pitchers at the top of this draft who should move very quickly. And man, talk about the draft of shortstops and pitchers, huh?
Yeah, let's actually talk about that. That's a great segue to what I wanted to talk about next. High school shortstops, college pitchers, we saw a theme in the first round. Why might we have seen that, JJ, this run on shortstops, especially on the high school side so early? There were so many picked, and you have the numbers and the history on that. Why don't you break it down for us a little bit more?
It is historic. This is the most shortstops we've ever seen in the first round. We actually had as many high school shortstops drafted this year. A couple of guys announced as shortstops who we don't think will play there long term, but we got to go by what they're announced. More high school shortstops. There were 10 drafted this year. And that's the record for most by pick 30 before for total shortstops was 10. So I will kind of cite Driveline founder Kyle Bodie kind of quote tweeted something I said about that, and he made the point. I think it's a good point. Defense is very important these days at most every position. And one thing about shortstops, I know that there are a lot of people who are going to see this and say, my team took a shortstop and we already have a good shortstop or whatever. These are the guys who, if you take shortstops, the plan is they'll be good defenders somewhere. Maybe it's shortstop, maybe it's third base, maybe it's second base, maybe it's center field, as we saw with Jackson Merrill. But these are guys who can play. And by the way, Jeff Pont's making the cameo because Jeff is right next to them.
Yeah, look at that. The whole BA squad. We got Ben coming in a couple minutes here too. Peter, you have any thoughts on this run of shortstops and pitchers?
Well, it's an impressive, I guess we'll start with the high school shortstops. It's obviously an impressive group, an impressive crop of players in and of itself. But, we talk about it all the time when evaluating prospects. You want guys who can play and stick at a premium position and play it at a high level. And you've got this group of guys who fit that description. Obviously, some, perhaps even a handful, depending on your definition of the word handful, will move off the position and play third or second or what have you. But, take the athletic kid who can stick up the middle with tools. I think that's the name of the game. And then with pitchers, same deal. I mean, you want to have a potential, who knows how many of these guys will actually headline a big league rotation one day. That's a really high ceiling and a lofty kind of expectation to put on them. But, you want someone that you can envision towing the rubber in a big game, in a big playoff game. I know that sounds drastic when they're just getting drafted, but you want guys that you can feel convicted on and can put in these big spots and potentially be high impact, franchise changing type of players. So that's another thing and another aspect of what makes the draft so much fun.
Let's keep moving. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to hit a couple of these questions because we got a couple of good ones here. If you don't mind me kind of being annoying and jumping in here on this, because let's roll through a couple of these.
Let's answer questions.
Okay, this one I love. I love the Angels adding Chase Shore to the pen with Ben Joyce. A lot of velocity. If you were asking me right now, obviously this depends on signing and all. I'll kick it back to you all. But if you said to me, who's the player who's most likely to be the first draft pick from this class to reach the majors, I could see where that could be Shores. I'll just put it that way. It is, there's, and I say that partly because we don't know. Like, we don't know yet. We haven't had a chance to talk, to get the post, to talk here with the scouting director and things like that. But if you just say that Chase Shores is going to be a reliever and you keep him there, he could move very quickly, could he not?
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
No, I agree with everything JJ was saying. You want to talk about guys that can reach the big leagues first, and especially if you want to put him in this reliever bucket, and you also add to the fact that the Los Angeles Angels were the team that picked him. I think a lot plays in Shores' favor to have a particularly efficient path to the big leagues. And that's not even to mention the fact that he's this towering 6'8" righty with big time velo and this cut slider that's a plus pitch. It's a hellacious 1-2 kind of east-west profile that, to your point, JJ, it does scream fast mover. And there's a chance we see him in the big leagues in rather short order. I don't want to stick a timeline on it or a year, but I mean, he fits the mold of someone who could be in there sooner rather than later.
And one thing I'll add, if our BA diehards will recall back to the live streams we did from Omaha, we took a pretty close look, actually the three of us, at Chase Shores from Omaha. He was somebody who was a StatCast standout, if you want to put it that way. Unbelievably explosive velocity, but a really good slider as well. So this is somebody who has multiple pitches. He kind of found his own a little bit as the season went on for LSU. Jay Johnson, their head coach, had said repeatedly that this is a guy who, coming off some injuries, was able to really hone his craft as he was able to get onto the mound more consistently. So to JJ's point, not only is he somebody who fits into the reliever bucket, but he's actually gotten a lot better quickly recently. So it seems like he's trending in a direction that's going to allow him to make that jump quickly. Let's continue to go down the list with some more questions here. Brian Shaw asks, would Andrew Fisher have been a better pick than Conrad for the Cubs? Either of you can take this. Jump in.
I guess I'll lead off, but I would say no. At least just when comparing the two players. Andrew Fisher is a really good player, but I love Conrad's tools more. He's an up-the-middle profile. Big league bodies, chance he's an above-average hitter with above-average power and is an above-average runner, probably moves off to a corner. But there are more tools there with Conrad.
JJ?
JJ's on mute again, so I'm just going to assume that he's a
No.
Here we go.
I was not on. Okay, I wasn't on mute earlier. My Bluetooth died, so that's what happened.
Oh.
So thankfully this time it didn't. So I would say that this is what we talked about: defense, the difference between defense and bat. Not that Conrad. I would say that Fisher. I know they announced him as a third baseman. You're just likely you're expecting him to be a first baseman. That's all. That's what he's going to be. That way, he's going to do a good job of mashing. That's what you want him to be. And so I think that you could say from that standpoint, you could look at this and say that's where the choice and the emphasis went here. By the way, Alex Lodis just recently went 60th overall to the Braves, which talk about a pick that I do really like the fit. The Braves, after all these years of going pitching, they've taken 2 shortstops already. They are now trying to start to restock they have probably 2 of their top 3 once they sign position player prospects they will have. Maybe top 2 have been taken tonight. So
let's go to Spencer Scott's question here because it's going to take us Oh, nope, clicked on the wrong one. Hold on. Sarah Smull's question. What do you think of the Doyle pick for her Cardinals? Why don't we take it back to the top of the draft? JJ, I'll go to you first.
Well, the Cardinals having this pick here is one of those serendipitous moments, right? They won the lottery. And here's a team that is in it now, but especially I would say next year, kind of should be saying, okay, this has been a rebuild, especially by Cardinal standards, but we're making strides. We should be competitive. I think that Doyle, he's a fascinating player, as we wrote a lot about. Like, he's got a great fastball. There are differing opinions about his secondaries and how effective they are, how effective they can be. So you could see a scenario where you say he's really good, but his development path is a little bit longer than some of these other guys who are a little bit more potentially fully formed. But to kick it back to, I'll kick it back to you on this, Peter. Like, at the same time, it's something that's kind of almost counter to what a lot of Cardinals pitchers have been in recent years. Like, this is a guy who has real bat missing stuff. And if the development goes well, you're talking about a guy who can miss bats, who could be front of rotation or dominant reliever, rather than a guy who, like, if they, gone a Jamie Arnold route and all, who's really good starter, but a little bit more middle rotation guy probably, whereas Doyle, you're kind of taking a little bit of a bigger swing, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting pick. I think that I'm probably lower or one of the low guys on staff with Liam Doyle, and that's not a knock on Doyle. It's I guess starting at the top with him, kind of the how he does it is really unique. It's stretch only, efforty, kind of noisy, not really a noisy delivery, but it's a high effort delivery. And so you kind of look at how many big league starters and good big league starters do it how he does. But then you go under the hood and you look at the stuff. His fastball is one of the best pitches of it, one of the best of its kind in this year's draft. It's a double plus offering. It's got a ton of carry through the zone. It's a legit rocket ship. And that's the calling card with Doyle. I mean, he was able to dominate with it this year. I think it was a 40% miss rate with a 63% usage. But the secondaries with him, I think, are rather underrated. Like the split change, especially, I think can develop into a really viable secondary offering if it isn't already. Same thing with the cut slide. And he just didn't need to use them at Tennessee. That's how dominant the fastball was. So I think it'll be reasonably easy once he gets into the Cardinals system for them to work with it and develop it. I think that's just a problem that Tennessee said, we'll let whatever team drafts him handle that. But like the clay is there for him to have a pretty impressive arsenal.
Let's I have one more question before we move on from Doyle for JJ. What's the reliever risk here? And if you are the Cardinals, is that a risk you're okay with? Because this seems like a guy who could be really dominant out of a bullpen just with his traits on that fastball, and maybe that gets him to the big leagues faster. Am I wrong? You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm not used to muting, but I'm here. I have to mute because there's so much background noise. That's the fallback option to me. I don't think in any way, especially taking him there, it's not a failure. But if he ends up as Andrew Miller, like, which again, very different body types. But Andrew Miller was a top of the draft starting pitcher prospect, selected for bat missing stuff, and he never pulled it together that way. But he did eventually become, for a few years there, a very dominant reliever. It didn't go as we hoped, but we got a nice fallback option here. You're developing here to be a starter. I would say though that there aren't a lot of guys that's going to depend somewhat on the development of the secondaries, because not that he can't have some success with his current approach and current repertoire, but to have the success that they're going to want him to have, that he's going to want to have, probably is going to involve developing some of these secondary or maybe new secondaries even. But the thing that we also know nowadays that's very different is, off seasons now are spent as kind of like you it's almost like you're taking a car to the garage and you're saying, well, we're going to add this to it and we're going to add and take away that. And when it comes to pitchers, that's like, okay, I've had multiple teams tell me that they feel comfortable that they can always find a slider for someone. Maybe it's a normal slider, maybe it's a sweeper, maybe it's a bullet slider, but there's going to be some kind of breaking ball that they can give you that's going to get you to, okay, that's a usable pitch for you. Maybe they can give you multiple in some cases. So I do think that that's a development that is very possible. By the way, also just kind of chiming in little things that happen. We are now 2 Witherspoons off the board because the Tigers have taken Malachi Witherspoon 62nd overall.
Hey, well, there
I
you
will
go.
say, too,
go ahead,
to your
Peter.
point about Doyle, the Cardinals aren't going to draft a guy that they don't feel really confident in sticking in the rotation and being an impactful rotation arm with their 5th pick in the draft, regardless of what anyone else might think. They're not taking a guy that they think is going to end up in the bullpen at any point soon with the 5th overall pick. So I think that also speaks to their conviction and confidence in the now stuff with Doyle. Obviously, it's tremendously loud, headlined by the fastball, but also what it could look like under the guise of their player development department.
Just on the Witherspoon front, if you recall, before the season, I wrote a story about how those 2 twin brothers were really trying to be drafted to the same team. The bigger goal, however, was that they were going to be drafted in the same draft. They are now one of very few sets of twins to be drafted in the same year. And without having looked it up, and I'm going to do it after we get off of this, I would venture to say that they're probably the highest pair of twins drafted in terms of overall draft position. So really cool for the Witherspoon family. Those guys have done it together their entire careers. First time now ever that they will not pitch for the same team. Let's answer some more questions. I think we got some really good ones here. Spencer Scott says, A's desperately needed pitching. Was Jamie Arnold the right pick for their system? I'll quickly answer that and say yes. But let me throw it to the experts.
I'm getting back on my soapbox. He's the top guy on their board at 11. They shouldn't be drafting on need. He went at 11 because that's who they liked the most at that point. He was the top guy on their board. They weren't thinking like, oh man, this is kind of what we need. Maybe they did a little bit on the pitching side, but that's a great pick at 11, I think, with Jamie, and great value there. It's a plus fastball slider combo. The changeup's flash plus, no doubt starter from a really funky and hard to pick up low 3/4 slot. I'm a huge Jamie Arnold fan. Like, he was in the SP1 conversation really right up until the end, until Kate Anderson did what he did in Omaha in the postseason.
I would just add to that yeah, if you're the A's, you're just thrilled that he was there. It is a case where need and opportunity melded together, because the reality of it is there was still Witherspoon. We did have a Witherspoon still on the board that they could have potentially looked at there. But Jamie Arnold was a guy who was seen as that top tier. It wouldn't have been if Jamie Arnold had gone 5 or 6 in a lot of different iterations of how this draft could have played out. We wouldn't have looked surprised at all by that. We wouldn't have said, oh, that's a reach. So to get him at 11, and by the way, to get a guy who, when I look at and say, who has fast moving traits among the college starters, he's been doing this successfully for multiple years. There's a history of durability here. He's been healthy, and there's multiple pitches. He knows how to pitch, and he has real stuff. But the blend is just there to me for him to be a guy who moves quickly, as Spencer says, for a team that does need pitching.
We're jumping around here a little bit, but there's a guy who I want to talk about who was just picked. JJ, you have better access to this than I do. Cam Leiter is going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think that is one of the best picks in this draft.
Yes.
I think the Dodgers are killing it. Both of you are freaking out. I'll say no more. JJ, go.
We were going to say the same thing, because I'm going to give JJ his flowers. Because on our staff draft, our final staff draft, JJ took Cam Leiter at pick 40 with the Dodgers. He nailed it. He nailed the rationale behind it too. They got their guy. I'll kick it to JJ, but I was fired up.
They got him in the second round, but this just made a whole lot of logical sense. And I'll say this though, where they got him, I said that pick 40 it might have made sense. It makes even more sense at 65, because what they're talking about here is they went actually out in when I say their first round, pick 40, but their first round pick, because they had a 10 pound, Zach Root Zach Root checks the box of something that's a little bit uncharacteristic for the Dodgers, which is here is a starting pitcher who has success, maybe a little less stuff, but is just durable and has done it year after year after year. Leiter fits much more the Dodgers approach, I would say, which is the approach of we love stuff. We are willing to accept a level of risk that most teams cannot take because we can approach it with volume. Cam Leiter fits that. I'll kick it back to you, Jacob, for a second on this one, which is where would you have expected Leiter to have been slotting if Cam Leiter had been healthy all year?
Oh, easy first round pick. And we actually talked about that before the season started. I had a conversation with Link Jarrett, the Florida State head coach. I think it was about a week or 2 weeks before the season began. And I asked him straight up, is Cam Leiter going to pitch this season? And he said, unfortunately not. It's not looking really good right now. We think if he's going to, it's going to be in the second half. If he pitches in the second half, and this is me quoting Link Jarrett here, and I'm just agreeing. If he even pitches in the second half, he thought that there was a chance he could be a top 15 pick in the draft. I completely see it that way. I actually think that he has some of the best raw stuff of anybody available this year, even with all the injuries. It's a fastball up to 99. His curveball is dirty. I know Peter loves some of his other secondary pitches, which I'm going to let him talk about in a second. But to answer your question, JJ, easy first rounder, potentially even in the top half of the first round. Peter, go.
I echo that. I mean, I think if he put together a full body of work this year at Florida State and was healthy, we're talking about him as a slam dunk type of first round pick. And from a stuff standpoint, he can go toe to toe. For my money's worth, he can go toe to toe with almost every arm. I think in the draft, he's got a chance. And I think he has now 3+ pitches in his fastball, slider, and curveball. The curveball and slider are distinct in shape from one another. The curveball is an absolute hammer with a ton of spin and downward biting action. The high 80 slider is a power pitch as well. Also spins it really, really well, and it's a consistent and looks the part of a consistent swing and miss offering. He's a 6'5", 235-pound kid. It's a big league body with a ton of stuff. He's a little bit of a spray gun command-wise for me right now. The strike throwing is below average. Or he can be a little bit of a spray gun. I'd say at times it's kind of, he's a coat or two of polish in the strike throwing department. Carlos would let me have it for using that phrase again. But when you talk about and use the phrase moldable balls of clay and fun and exciting moldable balls of clay, Leiter fits that description to a T, especially when you talk about him in the Dodgers system. Like, there's a chance he turns into a real monster.
Are there any other picks that stand out to you guys as maybe some real opportunities to develop some monsters, to use Peter's phrase right there? I'll actually start this conversation. Patrick Forbes to the Diamondbacks has got to be one of my favorite picks, and I'll steal another one potentially from you guys. Gage Wood to the Phillies, I thought was outstanding. See, I got Peter back, for those of you who remember our pre-tournament shenanigans that occurred on the podcast. But yes, Gage Wood to the Phillies is one of my favorite picks. Patrick Forbes probably second after that. Peter, give me a different one.
Yeah, so you picked my pocket with Gage Wood. But man, Marcus Phillips at 33 to the Red Sox is another one that really sticks out. When you talk about guys that could be, to keep hammering the word, but he could be a beast. And he already has a really tantalizing and plus fastball slider combo. The stuff with him is real. He's this workhorse right-hander. Was excellent at Tennessee. I think that, 33 may have raised some eyebrows, but I think that the Red Sox are really confident in their ability to develop him, their pitching development, especially, which has shined, especially in the last few years. And I think he's a great system fit. Obviously, at that point, they're not drafting on, need or anything, or at least that's not at the forefront. But I think, when they're looking at, how their system can develop guys, I think he's a really, really exciting fit with a ton of upside there.
JJ?
I'm going to go with guy the Guardians just took in the second round, Dean Purley, who had a very rough end to the year, right? He moved around, shortstop, second baseman, third baseman, and his arm got lost somewhere between second, short, and third, and he really had throwing problems this year. especially late in the year. But this was again, you are taking some risk when you take these guys who were thought to be slam dunk first rounders and they hit a speed bump, whether injury or performance related, and you get them. Sometimes it is that they just hit a speed bump, and then you're like, how did we get this guy? Ryan Howard will forever be the Phillies. Ryan Howard will forever be probably the perfect example of that. A guy who really had a down year, was considered a top power prospect, down year, draft year, comes back out and goes and hits 50 plus homers in a season and all that. So you've got that, right? So Purley's one like that. I mentioned, but at the same time, to go the other end of the spectrum, the Twins took Quentin Young, 54th overall, second round. And Quentin Young obviously has loud tools. It may not all come together, but if it does, it could be pretty spectacular.
All righty. Look at
Can
this.
I do one more?
After I say hi to Ben Badler, then you can do one more. We got another BA crew member. Ben joins the show. We're rolling here. We got almost 200 people watching us live on YouTube right now. I'll also take this opportunity before I let Ben say hi. If you have a comment and you're one of these almost 200 people on here and you want us to talk about it on the show, throw it in the comment section. We are answering all questions right now. Ben, how you doing?
I couldn't be better. How's it going, Jacob?
We're having a great time. I'll actually ask you the question that we were just discussing here. Is there a pick that stands out to you as maybe an opportunity for a team to kind of build a monster? Do you have a favorite pick so far that stands out?
Well, let's see. Looking at the first round picks so far, look, obviously the guys at the top of the draft, I like generally more than the guys who are later picks. But when I look at what the Cubs did at 17, getting Ethan Conrad, the Wake Forest outfielder, I really like that. I think the Cubs have been, they've hit on their recent college first round picks. I think Ethan Conrad is going to be next in line. And I think if he hadn't had that shoulder injury this year, I don't think he's available to them at this pick. So I think the shoulder injury obviously is a very legitimate, valid concern. Like, okay, Chase DeLauter comps, I think that fits for Ethan Conrad. Good. And as we're seeing again, as Chase DeLauter is hurt again, like that is a real risk. But man, the swing works really well. There's physicality, there's bat speed, power. He runs well. I don't know if it's going to be center field. It probably most likely is going to end up in an outfield corner. But I'm a believer in the bat, and I think the Cubs got good value here, and probably really good value because I suspect it's going to be an underslot deal for them to get build out their class even deeper down the draft.
Pete, you had one more?
Yeah, I was just in order so we can just keep this thing rolling. I'll hit on it really quick. I really like Michael Lombardi to the Royals. I just like Lombardi as an arm in and of himself. He's an outstanding athlete and a dynamic mover. He actually played center field a ton for Tulane when he wasn't pitching. No doubt, plus fastball, curveball combo. The curveball might actually be closer to a 70 than it is a 60. But the fastball plays really well. Again, he just sprays it, needs a third pitch. But the upside with him is really, really tantalizing. And then J.D. Thompson of the Brewers, fastball is kind of an invisible, especially in the top half of the zone. I love the Brewers' ability to develop pitching. We've seen that to the nth degree at the big league level this year, especially with Jacob Mizorowski. He's obviously a one-of-one guy when talking about pitchers and archetypes from a stuff standpoint. But JD has impressive stuff himself. The fastball is plus, pair of effective breaking balls, competitive strike percentage is really high. I like that one as well.
Now that we have Ben on the show, I want to talk about some of these high school guys who we haven't had a chance to discuss yet. And this is a great question to start it off. Was Jojo a good pick? Ben, why don't you talk about Jojo at number 8?
Yeah, he's a really, really polished looking hitter. I think he got a lot better too. Just it's been arrow up over the past year and a half, 2 years for him. Just a really good looking left-handed swing. It's smooth, compact, path for the barrel comes through the zone really well. And there's some size, some physicality there too, to to bank on some more power coming, probably more so than like Kason Cunningham is one of the best pure hitters too, I think, from that high school class, but certainly getting a lot more physicality and size and probably power potential with Jojo Parker than you have with Cunningham, as much as I like Cunningham and like that pick too. But yeah, good hitter. I don't know exactly where he ends up playing. Like, I think he probably moves off shortstop, but yeah, I think, and it just seemed like there was consistent positive scout feedback on him, especially offensively, from everybody who seemed to see him this spring after a really, really strong summer last year.
For JJ and Peter, off of that, any surprise the Marlins went with Arette over the two prep shortstops in Jojo and Billy Carlson? They typically lean prep bat. That was actually something we expected for them to go prep bat. They did not. What did you guys think of that pick?
JJ, do you want to lead it up? I'll take it. You know, I love the Ivar Arette pick. I guess, you know, when looking at it, I was slightly maybe surprised they didn't go with Jojo there, considering he was still available at 7. But Arette, I don't know if you could really call it a slide to 7, but I think him kind of falling into their laps is something that they're really, really excited about. It's rather easy to project plus power with him. The hit tool took a step forward this spring, posted a career low strikeout rate, upped his contact rates. And it's still headed in the right direction. And he's a unique body type, obviously. It's 6'5" and 220 pounds, but the defense is impressive for just his stature at shortstop. He took a step forward in that department as well. Since last spring, he's got a plus arm. You know, there's a chance that he could stick at the position. And even if he does move off of it and have to go to third, he's going to produce and hit for enough power where him at third base is still a rather impressive and exciting profile.
JJ? Yeah. Wait, you got to unmute JJ.
We're having to the Bluetooth
I
versus
think
JJ is a fight, is a knockout drag out fight for the ages. And I don't know who's winning. Bluetooth might be winning.
We'll circle back to JJ on this topic. I'm going to go to another question, Peter. How about this one? What do you guys think of the Gavin Keelin pick to the Giants? Ben, I'll have you go after Peter.
I like him at 13. I really like Gavin Keelin in general. I think you got to start with the offensive profile with him. You know, dating back to his days at Louisville, he swung the bat well, but this year at Tennessee, he took a real step forward, really in both the hitability and power departments. Hitability first. He was kind of this free swinger at Louisville, really aggressive, tended to expand the strike zone. But he honed it in a little bit this year and dialed it back at Tennessee, kind of found a happy medium. Started hunting and swinging at pitches he knew he could do damage against. The bat to ball skills are plus with Keelin. He's got an advanced feel for the barrel, and the impact took a step forward. You know, he's not going to be this thunderous power guy, but for him to go from, you know, a 35 or a 40 to a 45 or a 50, Giants are probably leaning 50 given where they took him, is a big development and step in the right direction. He put on probably, you know, 8 to 10 pounds of strength since transferring to Tennessee. And just from looking at him myself and watching him, looks like he's a little bit more into his lower half, coiling in his back hip a little bit better. And circling back to that point, he's hunting pitches he can do damage on. He's lifting the baseball more. It was encouraging to see the uptick in power with Keelin.
Ben, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think Peter summed up the player well. I thought it was fair value for where he was picked. Expected him to go somewhere in that mid-teens to 20-ish type range. So you're getting an advanced hitter who's going to make a ton of contact. I don't know that he's ever going to hit for a ton of power. Definitely, I think, hit over power with him, more second base than shortstop. So I don't think you're getting a star with him, but I think you have a chance to get a very steady, everyday type second baseman.
Check in with JJ. JJ, any thoughts? Oh, no, can't hear you.
Hear me. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. Okay. This computer's also old. I'm using an Apple, which is, it gets me wrong, certainly right for using an Apple when I'm a PC guy. No, I mean, I think they covered that well. I did have two other questions of tied to, that I think they're tied together that I think we should cover, because I think this is one of the stories of the draft right now, and we don't know the full answer on it. But to bring up this question, what's going on with Anthony Iansson? I will say that is probably the surprise. Now, we know that the dynamic of the world has changed. And again, I don't want to get much into speculation. You all may have better information than I do. I don't have any insight on this where I have sent this, representatives are saying this or whatever. But I'll just say this: the dynamic has changed somewhat now, as we've seen with the news you broke earlier this week, Jacob, with the Texas rotation, where I mean, I will say, I don't think there was any scenario we thought that we would be picking at pick 84 and Anthony Iansson would still be on the board.
I will say,
yeah, Pico.
The one thing that could be giving teams pause would be the quality of the fastball. I think it just lacks from a liveliness standpoint. The velo is, I guess you could say it's there. He saw an uptick in it since going to LSU, unsurprisingly. He was more in the mid-90s, bumping a 6, 7, or 8 at times. But the quality of the fastball isn't super great. But for him to still be on the board here through 84 picks, I think whoever ends up taking him is getting, that pick is going to grade out as an A+ in my book. He's a starter all the way. He's a plus strike thrower. It's a really easy and repeatable delivery. He's got 2 distinct and at least above average breaking balls and a curveball and a slider. The slider for me is a plus pitch with 2-plane break to it, and the curveball is an above average one with it's bigger in shape, almost true 12-6 downer with some bite to it. The changeup is a fine kind of show 4th pitch just to show you got it in your arsenal. And like I said, to tie it all together, he's a plus strike thrower. I mean, there's a ton to like with Iansson, even if the fastball isn't necessarily a thunderous pitch. But whoever ends up with him, I could not be more of a fan with that pick when he does go.
With any pitcher too, we don't know the medicals, but that's always what I think too. If somebody's following a pitcher like that, like we saw with, Savage didn't fall out of the first round last year, but when he fell, it was like, something's going on here. So I don't have any information on that, but it is always something that runs through your mind when you see a pitcher like that going down.
And I'll just say as well, I actually thought that Anthony Einson would be a much earlier pick, and I know JJ did too. In one of our final 500 BA 500 conversations, JJ and I actually stood on the table a little bit for Anthony Einson to have him pushed up our board. The pitchability with him is really good. So, maybe there are concerns with the fastball quality, but this is somebody who I think does a really good job of just kind of mixing the whole arsenal together. And he's got a good curveball. He's got a good slider. I was expecting to see his name much earlier. JJ, go ahead. JJ, we cannot hear you. I think the Bluetooth has disconnected. We can hear you very muffled. So, let's see what happens there. Hold on. JJ might have a solution.
How about this?
Can hear you now.
Okay, so let's try this.
What I will say to the guy. Go ahead.
Peter, hold on.
What I would say about this is there is no scenario. I'm not being fastball quality, whatever. There's no scenario on pure talent that Anthony Iansson is still on the board at 85. Now, It could be medical. It could be asking price. When I brought this up because it says, what are the potential overslot guys? Normally, we think of overslot as high school guys. But now we are in a world where colleges can now compete financially for these players with the MLB teams. So when we say, I will also bring up, because I'll bring that up because if you said, who's another name that stands out to me, Briggs McKenzie would be a potential overslot guy. This is a guy who is a potentially second-round type pitching talent, high school arm. But where's he also slated to go? LSU. LSU is one of the programs that when you said who has the most financial wherewithal to make these decisions more difficult. We saw William Schmidt go there last year. So I just bring that all up because I think that it is interesting that we have an LSU college arm who's still on the board we didn't expect to have, and an LSU high school arm commitment signee still on the board that we thought would be off the board too.
So Iansson is now off the board. He just went at 87 to the Red Sox. So that's an A-plus pick by the Red Sox because we were just talking about him for all that. And to Edmund D saying the fastball plays, his ability to locate in the velo, I know you might see it and think, it's impressive, but it was a 16% whiff rate on it, and hitters hit almost 300 or just a shade under 300 against it. So that's kind of what we were talking about when it pertains to quality of fastball, but the pitchability, the stuff he has, especially with the secondaries, is really impressive. The Sox, their run of pitching they've got in this draft with Kyson Witherspoon, Marcus Phillips, and now Anthony Iansson, that's a really impressive trio.
Alrighty, let's keep it pushing down the list here. We kind of touched on this very briefly. What do you guys think about Gage Wood going to the Phillies, knowing what he did in college? Ben, you handled our live updates during the first round. You want to touch on this one first?
I think you guys are really excited about Wood, right?
We are.
Fair to say that?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm not quite as high as you guys are on him. I mean, I don't think it was a bad pick or anything. I understand why they made the pick. Just pitchers who have a limited track record of being a starter in college and have a history of injuries, the way that, especially a shoulder injury that he had this year, that always gives me a lot of pause. I think teams sometimes think, oh, well, his stuff is so good, or he was in the bullpen, but we'll teach him how to start. We'll keep him healthy, or we'll fix whatever needs to be done. He just hasn't, he just had bad luck or whatever the reason is. And then they take these guys like a Jaden Hill or Reggie Crawford, and then what happens? They don't stay healthy in Pro Bowl. Not always. Like Walker Buehler, obviously, was an example of a guy who had Tommy John surgery, and that worked out great for the Dodgers. But there's just a very limited track record here of logging a lot of innings and of starting. But when he was on the field this year, obviously, he has really good stuff and just piled up swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss.
So I'll take a little bit of an opposite stance. Jacob, I'll be curious, and JJ, to see where you guys lie. I'm a huge fan of it for the Phillies at 26, I think it was. I actually thought he was going to go a little bit earlier than that. His fastball is one of the best of its kind in this year's draft. The stuff is really, really impressive with Wood. It's headlined by the fastball. It sits in the mid-90s. He holds his velocity for the entirety of its outing. It's up to 98. From a velocity standpoint, obviously that alone is rather impressive, but when you take a deeper look and kind of go under the hood and behind the curtain a little bit, that's where it really stands out. He's got a flat approach angle. He gets natural carry on the pitch. It averaged almost 17 inches of ride through the zone. He has a really flat vertical approach angle, which again, when we go back to kind of the start of this call, we were talking about Tyler Bremner a little bit. It helps create that rise ball or ski ball kind of invisible effect, especially in the top half and top third of the zone. And his ability to command the pitch and control it and consistently locate it where it's at its best, helps it play up even further. It's a no doubt 70. It generated an outlandish 42% whiff rate, 32% chase rate, and an in-zone miss rate of 29% this year. And he pairs his heater with an above average, low to mid 80s curveball. It flashes plus with a lot of depth and sharp downward tilt. And then he rounds out his arsenal with an average slider, and he's an above average, potentially strike thrower. So I really like it. I know the shoulder injury is a little scary. The low mileage-ness as a starter could be a little bit of, could add a little bit of iffiness like Ben alluded to, but I'm a huge fan of the stuff with Wood, and am confident in his ability to start.
I'll piggyback that. I love this pick. I was super impressed when I saw Gage Wood. I've seen him in person multiple times, and I've just every single time been kind of blown away by the stuff. I think his curveball also stands out. We haven't really talked about that very much yet, but that was a really great pitch for him in Omaha when he threw a no-hitter against Murray State. I've had conversations with multiple SEC coaches who have pegged it as the best fastball that they faced all year, and some of those guys even faced Liam Doyle. So I think that's kind of a loud piece of feedback from opposing dugouts. I thought it was a great pick, although I'll kind of sit in the middle, actually. I agree that there is concern about the health. Shoulder injuries especially are things that I think are kind of big time red flags, and he had a bad one. But again, I think that the stuff is outstanding. The results were there. And so, for me, I thought it was a risk worth taking. JJ, where do you net out on this one?
At the spot, I love it. That's where I get Ben's point. I kind of don't disagree with Ben's point, but when you get to that part of the first round, you're kind of balancing those risks a little bit more. If you had taken him top 15, I'd be much more concerned about it, right? Because then you're saying you're leaving guys of that talent on the board, similar talents. At the point they got him, they were getting really, I would say, maybe the most purely talented college pitcher still on the board, and they're accepting some risk with that as well.
Let's keep on going here. We got some questions piling up in the chat. If you're watching us live, again, put your comments in the chat. We're answering questions basically from here on out the rest of the evening. Let's go to Jeremiah. We can touch on this one briefly. Do y'all think that Chase Shores could have used another year in college? No, we don't. We talked about it earlier. We actually think he could be one of the quickest guys into the big leagues. Let's go to Robert. Do you think the Mariners moving forward at the trade deadline and drafting Stevenson in round 2? JJ.
The thing I'll just say with this is, I think they could move Harry Ford at the deadline. I think they could have moved Harry Ford at the deadline last year. We saw Harry Ford. I will say this for him at the Futures game. I feel like now Harry Ford at the Futures game, he can kind of like welcome in everyone else, show them how you do this and all, because Harry Ford's been around a little while and he's been doing this for a while as a prospect, and there still is no real clear answer for how he fits with the Mariners. But I'd say that's kind of irrespective of Stevenson. The reality of it is that the Mariners right now have the best catcher in baseball. Stevenson will have time to develop, and if he does, then you solve that problem at that point. There's not going to be a scenario where when Stevenson comes in, you're like, hey, we got to move Harry Ford off of catcher because Luke Stevenson's on the same team. They're going to be at different levels. Harry Ford should be in the big leagues at some point this year. And really, if he's in AAA next year as a catcher for the Mariners, he's starting to the prospect status is starting to grow a little stale because he's had time, and they've got to find either a spot for him in Seattle or find a spot, move him, and get value for him. But I would say that Stevenson's drafting doesn't really change that, because in the best case scenario, I would say as a catcher that Stevenson's probably a couple years away. And by then, whatever Harry Ford's going to be for the Mariners should have been solved by then.
Ben, your turn. Thoughts on Nines? Please, pleasantly surprised to see the Astros pass on Laviolette.
Yeah, when Xavier Nines gets into a ball and is like in sync and on time, like you would think he would go in the top 5 overall picks. Like it looks really good from the left side, 6'4", physical, left-handed hitter who has, true all fields power. So like sometimes we talk about high school hitter power. People go like exaggerate it a little bit, or not exaggerate, but it'll be evaluated on the scale relative to other high school players. We throw out terms like plus or like double plus, raw power, that kind of stuff. We actually throw one of these guys into a AA, BP session and see how their power stacks up against those guys. Well, like doesn't quite fare quite as well there yet, obviously, understandably, but he has legitimate, like, huge raw power. I think if everything clicks, you could be looking at a 30 home run bat. It's a very patient approach. He's going to draw a lot of walks. The risk factors with him there is a lot of swing and miss in there. Some similar questions with Ethan Holiday too. I do think Ethan Holiday's a better pure hitter than Nines is, but Nines is a very patient hitter. He's going to draw a lot of walks. If you can keep that swing and miss to a manageable level, you could have a middle of the order bat. I think he was announced as a shortstop. Is that right? I know he's played shortstop, but and there are some guys who defy expectations. I get it, and they end up staying at shortstop. I don't think that's going to happen with Xavier Nines. I think he's going to pretty quickly move to third base, he's so big. There's some chance it's corner outfield, maybe even first base long term. But he has done a good job over the last couple of years of like keeping his body in really good condition. So I'm optimistic he can stay at third base. So really like the patience, really like the power. Just gonna have to see how that swing and miss translates once he's in pro ball.
Here's a fun one. At a certain point in the draft, and we have officially hit it, we will start to see players who we did not have on the BA 500. And our first one came off the board just now. Trevor Cohen was selected by the Giants in the 3rd round. Peter, you have some notes on him. Why don't you share what you got on Trevor Cohen?
Yeah, our first kind of off the board pick was San Francisco, but it's a sneaky one. Trevor Cohen this year hit just a shade under 390 at Rutgers with 24 doubles, a couple homers, and 19 bags with 30 walks to just 15 strikeouts. When you hear me read kind of the back of the baseball card with him, it's rather easy to understand and infer that, you know, hitability and feel to hit is the name of the game here with him. The contact skills are comfortably plus, posted an 89% overall contact rate. That number shifts to 91% when you're focusing just on pitches inside the strike zone. And he pairs that with a really advanced approach and pitch recognition skills. And he's got a particular knack for using the opposite field. He sprays line drives all over the field, but he is a particular and has shown a particular comfort going into the left center field gap. And obviously the hitability with Cohen is the name of the game here. But, you know, you could kind of tap into a little bit more power and impact with him. The batted ball data, an average exit velocity of 83 isn't impressive. But, you know, his air pull percentage was a minuscule 9.1%. So, I mean, if you can have him get the ball up in the air more, especially the pull side, that could increase the game power output a little bit. But that's obviously not the name of the game with Cohen. It's a guy who can hit and hit at a really high level. He's done it now for 3 years at Rutgers. He was a career 338 hitter. And, you know, I feel comfortable sticking a no doubt 6 on the hit tool with him. And he also runs well. He's an above average to plus runner. He can go get it a little bit in the outfield. I think he profiles best in a corner professionally, but interesting pick by the Giants. He's got some intriguing tools and a really, really polished and professional hitter.
Let's go to MPG. Was the Mets selection a surprise? They're referring to Mitch Voigt from Michigan. I'll leave this one open to JJ wants it. Go for it, JJ.
I just want to, I'm going to kick it back to you real quick because you know more about Voigt than I do, but I do want to point out Matt Eddy, who does our Mets for us, pointed out in some ways he wasn't a surprise because I believe they listed him, even though he didn't pitch this year, as a two-way player. And
yes.
Man, if the Tigers love their left-handed hitting shortstops, and they do, and if the Orioles love to never draft a pitcher at the top of the draft, and they do, the Mets love to draft two-way players at the top of the draft with a Nolan McLean and a Carson Benj. And here we go with Mitch Voigt, who was announced as a two-way player. I'll now kick it back.
Yeah, I mean, this is a kind of an interesting pick. I actually am going to hand it to Peter because, Peter, I think you had some thoughts on him right before we started recording, and I don't want to steal your thunder on that.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a whole lot in terms of Mitch Voigt, but I think at 38, he was obviously a late helium guy, just in general, especially on the college side. And what we were hearing in the days and even hours leading up to the draft is that he could go in a really, really good spot. And he did. He's an impressive kind of data darling type of player. He performed really well this year at Michigan. He's going to be a hitter professionally, but average EV just under 92, 90th percentile exit velocity of nearly 106. It's above average bat to ball skills, optimal launch angle data. When you look under the hood with Mitch Voigt, even beyond the level of performance this year, I think there's reason to be really excited about the kind of bat and about the kind of bat that he is.
All right, we got another question here. Ben, this is going to be a you question. Do you think Jack Bauers is going to school?
It's kind of a crazy thing to think, like, could the guy who throws 103 miles an hour not sign out of high school? Like, imagine JJ, like or all you guys, but just we've worked together the longest, like 10, 15 years ago, ever thinking that like
Tyler Kolek went in the top 3 purely on the fact that he threw 100. There was nothing else, but that was enough 12 years ago, I guess now. 12
yeah, I mean, you think of guys like Riley Pine. I mean, I mean, I guess you could say if he was born 10 years earlier, would he be throwing 103? Probably not. Like, different development of tools available now for players, and players just keep getting better and better and better, despite what some cranks might think out there. But yeah, it's kind of wild to think that he might go to school. It's hard to say just because I think he's one of these prime candidates to be an overslot deal at some point in this draft, right? Like, I'm sure it's just about teams looking at their bonus pool, saying, okay, how much do you want? Him giving the answer, them going around to other players that they want, whether it's high school hitters, pitchers, and just teams trying to make the best decision for themselves to see what they can fit in their bonus pool. If he has huge bonus demand asks, yeah, maybe he does get to school, because as much talent as he has, like, it's obviously an electric fastball from the left side, and to generate that kind of velocity without a ton of effort either is really, really exciting. It's a high spin breaking ball too, to be able to mold and work with. I mean, he was really wild last summer, like super, just all over the place. The tracker, the history even before that of control was pretty spotty, but not quite as bad as it was last summer. Better this year, but I mean, he's been had his innings managed very carefully against Illinois high school hitters. You can imagine what those guys are doing when they step in the box against a guy throwing 100 miles an hour. Hard to tell a lot, but yeah, I mean, it's upside, but a lot of risk. I'm sure he's somebody the teams want to sign, but it just depends on the price. So I don't know, maybe 50-50, flip a coin. He might get to school. That would be a pretty exciting arm to work with. Even though I wouldn't, like, if he gets to school, like, I don't know, that's not the guy you necessarily plug into your rotation right away for as high profile as he is and expect, oh, this guy's going to have success right away. He could go in and, walk a batter per inning his first year out there. There's a wide range of directions things could go for Jack Bauer.
The two things I want to add to that, because it goes back to the question we had about overslot deals. We've only seen 4 high school players taken in the 3rd round so far, and we're nearing the end of the 3rd round. So we are now in the time where either it is a high school player who has a smaller bonus ask, or it is a team who has the fit. And that's kind of the two things we're looking at here. He's one of those. We mentioned Briggs McKenzie, Coy James. There are guys who are still on our board who are in that range where it's like it could go either way at this point.
Yeah, I would think Coy James is probably going to have a big asking price too to get him out of Ole Miss.
Let's keep moving down the questions here. Maybe one of my favorites of the night from Jared Advincula, 2026 draft prospect, if that's actually you, although I will assume it is. How do you feel about Charles Davlin being a CBA lock? Pete, you want to answer this one?
If that's Jaron, we thank you very much for joining the stream. That's pretty cool. I mean, he's got a chance to go in the first round in 26. Yeah, I think is our 7th ranked transfer this year on our current transfer portal rankings. So thanks for stopping by. If it is you, if it's not you, kind of a deep and weird pull to impersonate Jaron Advincula, but no, I really like that pick for the Dodgers. I think you guys do as well. And Charles was outstanding this year at Arkansas, a career year after a solid freshman year at Florida Gulf Coast. Was one of the more impactful transfer bats, not only in the SEC, but in the entire country. Hit 346 with 12 doubles, 14 jacks, 60 RBIs, 10 bags, and more walks than strikeouts. And for a little while there, for a decent chunk into the season, he had more home runs than strikeouts. And he's this kind of strong, compact, physical kid with a fun blend of performance and tools. I think the performance slightly outweighs the tools but another guy who fits into that exciting and intriguing data bucket. There's some thump there with Charles, particularly to the pull side. He posted numerous batted balls over 110, 104 mile an hour, 90th percentile EV, and the contact skills with him are double plus. They're outstanding. I mean, the hit tool for me is a comfortable 55, closer to a 6 than it is a 55. His end zone contact rate this year, I believe, was 94%, with an overall contact rate just in general of nearly 90%. And I think with a couple of smallish tweaks, the game power output could improve even further. He didn't pull the ball in the air a whole lot. If you can get him to lift it to the pull side, I think that would warrant positive results. So a fun player, a blend of performance and tools. I think the question mark with me for Charles is, where does he fit defensively? He played center field last summer on the Cape. Arkansas used him primarily in left field. He played right field at Florida Gulf Coast, but he also played second base. And I think that's a really intriguing part of his game, is him on the dirt. I think that they'll probably try him out in the outfield at first, probably left field. But he's got quick feet. He's an athletic kid who can run. So I think that there's a non-zero chance he might end up back on the dirt at second. So I think the overall defensive skill set profiles best in left.
We get a lot of questions. Oh, go ahead.
Let's say the third round just wrapped up. I'm curious which of these picks here in the third round jump out for you guys, because I really like the White Sox getting Kyle O'Deese, the shortstop from Georgia Tech. 76th overall. It's probably about like where we expected him to go, but man, I like him a lot more. I think he's one of these types of players that just gets a little bit overlooked because there's nothing super sexy or loud tools that he has that jump out at you right away, but and maybe people discount it too because of the Georgia Tech ballpark being so hitter friendly, but I don't think it's just a ballpark creation in his case. I just think he's a very well-rounded, like steady player across the board who is a great performer this year in the SEC, makes a lot of contact. I think there's some sneaky power in there too, if that, sneaky adjective really, not even sure that fits for him, but there's some pop in there. And I like, I think he's going to stay in the middle of the field, and I'm probably higher on his chances to stay at shortstop than some other people, or just than a lot of people are. So I really like that pick. I think we see guys like, Nico Horner was a first round pick. Maybe that surprised some people that he did go in the first round that year, but that kind of mold, there's like a very steady across the board college performer where, okay, there's no 170 tool that grabs everybody's attention, but just a combination of performance, the hitting ability, and chance to, stick in the middle infield. I think it's going to profile really well as he continues to move up.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, there's a run of pitchers, and not to kind of buzz through this without giving not enough analysis here, but there's just a run of pitchers who we really like and have talked about a lot on the college podcast. Griffin Hughes from Miami at number 91 to Seattle is a guy who I really like. Brian Curley from Georgia, the next pick at number 92 to Arizona. We really like him. Ben Jacobs from Arizona State at number 98 to the Tigers. That's probably my first pick that I really like for the Tigers. And Cody Bowker, I wrote about this morning as one of my 15 college guys to keep an eye on. He went at number 100 to the Phillies, who I thought have had a really good draft for pitchers. Peter, next. Go ahead.
Let me interject real quick. I've got to bail on you guys because we're wrapping up here. And I got to get back and do some writing too at some point. But thank you guys, and y'all keep rolling. I have more and more people joining now the draft's over. So sorry I have to head.
See you later.
I guess piggybacking off of that, Dominic Reed to the Cubs is a really interesting one. I think he went 90th overall. He was a guy that we had ranked a little bit further down the board, but there are some really interesting traits with Reed, who flourished this year at Abilene Christian after transferring there. The fastball, it sits kind of in this 91 to 94 range, but it's been up to 95 and 96 with some carry, especially in the top half of the zone. but he gets over 7 feet of extension on it. It helps the pitch play way up. It's a good offering, but the bread and butter with him is his low to mid 80s changeup. It's a no doubt plus pitch. Underratedly, one of the better changeups in this year's draft class, at least on the college pitching side. Rounds out his arsenal with an okay slider, but that fastball changeup combination with Reed is really, really impressive. So I like him to the Cubs. And then Landon Vitterick to the Dodgers at pick 104. I actually just wrote about Vitterick a couple days ago, but tools, that's the name of the game here with him. Had a career year, strong athletic body, legit bat speed, regularly generates quality contact. But the batted ball data with him is really, really appealing and exciting. It was an average EV this spring of almost 93 miles an hour, 90th percentile EV of almost 110. It was 109.9 miles an hour to be exact, and a plethora of batted balls over 110. So he's got an impressive knack for pulling the ball in the air. The air pull percentage with him was 55% or nearly 55%. He was consistently on the barrel, chased at just a 17% clip. And the swing decisions with him are advanced, but if he gets more aggressive against pitches kind of in his nitro zone or go zone, whatever you want to call it, that could serve him well. And he's a double plus runner who knows how to run. He's got an average to a tick above average arm in right field. There are just a lot of fun tools here with Vitterick. And again, you talk about the Dodgers and their ability to develop guys, not only arms, that also translates to the other side of the ball with position guys. That's another fun one and a name to keep circled.
It's actually kind of the perfect transition to this question. Who do y'all think had the best day one? I know it just wrapped up, but does anybody have a team that stands out? Ben, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, it's hard to say like without like seeing the whole draft unfold, but flipping through, just going down the board, some of the teams. I mentioned the White Sox. I like the Lodis pick. I like the Billy Carlson pick too. Steele Hall went one pick ahead of him. I like Steele Hall. I would rather have Billy Carlson. They're both elite defenders at shortstop, true shortstops. I think Billy Carlson is the best defensive shortstop in the class. And I'm not taking a guy with a top 10 overall pick if I am not convinced they're going to hit. And there is still some, obviously, risk, obviously with any high school hitter, just about how the bat translates. I understand some of other people's hesitation with Carlson hitting, and I had some more of that with Carlson as an amateur, but he makes a lot of contact, and there's some surprising bat speed in there for a really wiry kid. I don't know how much power he's going to grow into because there is bat speed. You can look at his frame and say, okay, there's a lot of room to get stronger, but it's kind of a narrow, tight build. So I don't know how much power he's going to come into, but I think he's going to make a lot of contact. The bat speed is there, and it's a true shortstop premium position to get him, and then to balance that out with Lodis, who's just more of like your steady Eddie type guy. I like their draft. I think it worked out well for them. Mentioned the Cubs getting Ethan Conrad where they did. I like that pick. And I was a fan of the Pirates first two picks too. I mean, getting Seth Hernandez at 6 overall. I think he's the pitcher. I agree with what Carlos said on the draft show. Like he has the most upside of any pitcher in this class. You can say, okay, high school pitcher risk. Okay, sure. That's all fair. That's fine. He's about as polished as you're going to get for a high school pitcher. Really good delivery, electric fastball, ridiculous changeup. I think the breaking stuff gets overlooked a little bit just because the changeup is so good. I mean, it's a legitimate 70 pitch, but there's real feel to spin a couple of breaking balls in there that I think the Pirates, who have done a good job developing pitching, will probably tease out even more from those pitchers. And Angel Cervantes with their next pick. I really like Angel Cervantes, another guy who's really polished, very young for the class, does it easy, really good feel for manipulating his secondary pitches as well. So I thought those were two good picks to start their draft too.
For me, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers. I've talked about them a couple times already on this. I think Zach Root's an underrated pick for them. I really like the polish that he has in his entire arsenal, but the off speeds, the curveball and changeup in particular, impressed me throughout the season when I got to see him. Charles Davlin, we talked about already on the show. I think that he was a really good pick, somebody who made some overhaul kind of moves to his swing, leveled it out a little bit more, and also trained bat speed after getting to Arkansas, which benefited him a lot. Cam Leiter, I think, is really an underrated pick just because of the stuff and what he potentially brings to the table if he can get healthy and kind of get worked up in that Dodgers system. And those three picks to me really stood out. So I would say the Dodgers are my winners of day one. Let's keep on pushing down the question list. We got tons to get through here. Hold on.
Can I give my favorite class super quick?
Yeah, please.
I like Baltimore Orioles, A+ for me. They went Ike Irish and Caden Bodine belly to belly. With their first two picks of the draft, they followed it up with taking Vaheva Aloy, the 2025 Golden Spikes Award winner, at 31. Then they went Slater DeBron and Joseph Jurwa at 37 and 58, respectively. Rounded it out with JT Quinn, who was a late momentum guy after a really impressive showing on the Cape, and RJ Austin at 93. Particularly those first 5 picks with Irish, Bodine, Aloy, DeBrun, and Jurwa. That's a legit group right there. Irish has one of the more appealing hit power combos in this year's, college class, with a comfortably plus arm. Positional questions as to whether or not he'll stick behind the plate or move to a corner outfield spot, but the no doubt plus arm with him plays in a corner outfield spot. And then Vaheva Aloy, plus raw power, no doubt, but legitimate plus game power with both metal and wood. The bat speed with him is really, really impressive. The hit tool, especially seeing shapes and picking up spin and secondaries out of the hand, needs some refinement, but like Iva Arquette, who we talked about, he took a step forward in that regard this spring, and I'm also more confident now in his ability to stay at shortstop than I was at this point last year. He's got enough arm strength for the position, makes all the plays that he should. It'll be curious to see where he trends defensively, but the quality of his at-bats over the course of this year just got better and better. And Caden Bodine is one of just a few hitters in this year's draft that we felt really confident sticking a plus hit tool on. It's a really, really impressive body of work at the plate with double plus contact skills. He's consistently on the barrel, sprays line drives to all parts of the yard from both sides of the plate. And then behind the plate, defensively, he is really, really advanced, super soft hands, one of the best receivers in the country behind the dish. He steals a ton of strikes, consistently works below the baseball. And he's got an above average and most importantly, really, really accurate arm. And he's a plus defender. And then Slater DeBron is one of my favorite prepsters, this prototypical bouncy leadoff guy with this compact physical frame. He's a standout defender in center field. For me, he's a plus defender and a 70 runner. The instincts are outstanding. The baseball sense is high level. He takes really crisp routes to the ball. And he's got an advanced feel for the barrel at the plate. And Joseph Jurwa, one of the better changeups in the college class. He's a unique archetype of player. He's a 6'8", 200-pound left-hander who attacks from this really low 3/4 borderline sidearm slot. Fastball has some run and ride through the zone. Finishes out the arsenal with a slower slider breaking ball type deal that lacks teeth right now, but he's a plus strike thrower. That's a really fun group of 5, and that's without even going in depth on JT Quinn and RJ Austin. We were kind of expecting the Orioles to make some noise just given the sheer amount of picks that they had, and they made a ton of noise and then some.
Were you guys surprised that the Orioles took 2 catchers, obviously, TBD where Ike Irish ends up, and were you surprised that Caden Bodine was still available for them after the first round?
Yes, Go ahead, Peter.
No, my answer will be short and crisp. I wasn't super surprised to see them, after they took Ike Irish, obviously I wasn't totally floored to see them go with Bodine because, again, you're drafting on who the top guys on your board are, not what you think you might need. So it's clear that at that juncture at 30, that Bodine was the top player on their board as well. And with Irish potentially moving to the outfield, that gives way to arguably the top college catcher in this year's class with Bodine.
I was just going to say that the surprise for me is just that they went with Bodine, period. I mean, I thought that, for him to still be available was surprising to me, but I don't know that organization really needed that position with the amount of money that they have and the picks that they have. I would have thought that they went in a different direction that high up. But to Peter's point, I actually don't really view it as them doubling up on catchers. I have kind of always been on the train that Ike Irish is bound for a move to the outfield where he's just going to let the bat play. He's a well below average defender behind the plate, and I just don't see a reason to push it. And he's athletic enough to be able to play on the grass. So, it kind of depends on how you look at that one for me. Who is there anybody who you guys think is like a best available left? Like, is there somebody who you were really surprised to not see come off the board? We saw Caden Bodine slide a little bit. We talked about Anthony Iansson sliding a little bit. Is there somebody who's still kind of on that slide that you're surprised about?
Yeah, I'm looking through like the high school players, and a lot of them not like stunned just as I'm going down our best available list, like Jack Bauer, Briggs McKenzie, guys who maybe not either are really risky in Bauer's case, as we talked about, or Briggs McKenzie, who I'm just not as high on, like Coit James. I would put actually Appenzeller in that same group with McKenzie, another lefty, high school lefty. Coit James, I think, is really good. I've long been a fan of Coit James. I think teams just view him as somebody who really wants to go to Ole Miss. Brock Sell, I like a lot too. High school outfielder from Stanford. He's 55 overall on our board. Again, one of the top high school players available, but he's a Stanford commit. How often does Stanford ever lose commits? I mean, he's more talented than most of them, but I think that's probably playing a factor into it. Next year, Tyler Spangler is really going to test that. They have a few guys who are going to test that next year for Stanford's 2026 high school commits. But as I scroll down, I like Braden Jackson a lot, catcher from Oregon. Questions if he's going to catch because he's so big, from California. He's committed to Oregon, but just such a big. He's 6'5", 6'6", but actually folds up really well behind the plate. And I like the offensive skill set he brings. Like Miguel Sime from New York, LSU commit. I think he still goes somewhere, but again, he fits in kind of that Jack Bauer mold of wow, this is an electric fastball, but there's also a lot of risk there. So I can see why he's still on the board right now.
Jack Bauer, Miguel Sime, and Briggs McKenzie are a trio of high school arms that stand out collegiately. Gavin Turley, Mason DeVille, Danny Dickinson, Nick Dumanil, Corbin Dickerson, Henry Ford, and a handful of others. Those also stick out to me as names that are still available and kicking around.
I was going to say Nick Dumanil as well, and then Miguel Sime would be on the high school side. The surprise for me, I think it also kind of sparks an interesting conversation, Sime in particular. Are we in an era now where we're going to see more guys potentially sliding down because of NIL? Is it possible that he has some sort of deal with LSU lined up that's going to get him to campus, even if we didn't suspect it? Teams like LSU have a huge war chest, and there are others like them. Are we in a position now where this is going to become more commonplace? Peter, I'll start with you, and then Ben, you can just jump right in.
Maybe this is a bad or incorrect take, and I'll be curious to hear what you guys think, but 1,000%, right? It's a factor with the signability of guys even in college, and I think more so with high school prospects and especially the headliners in your respective recruiting classes. And, you kind of have to just call it like it is. If Miguel Sime gets to campus, he's getting paid. I don't know what the deal looks like and all of that, but he's getting paid if he makes it to Baton Rouge. And that's a credit to LSU and their coaching staff that's done an excellent job navigating the NIL and portal era and getting some serious recruiting wins. Last year, you saw it with William Schmidt and to an extent Maverick Rizzi. You saw it already this year with Omar Cerna taking his name out of the draft, and others. Like, they know how to do it and kind of thread the needle, I guess, in this era. And they probably have a luxury that a lot of other programs don't have when it comes to the NIL budget. But yeah, if he goes to Baton Rouge, like, he's not going there for free 99. Like, I think it's an unbelievable program, and it's one he's juiced up about and all that. And that's not meant to be a knock, but yeah, absolutely. That's a huge factor.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a huge factor. It depends on a case to case basis though for each player. I don't know how much I suspect he's not still on the board just because of LSU has some big NIL package that they are going to throw at him specifically. It could be. It could, like, it's not like these deals are all, publicly available in a database we can just all click over and see for full transparency. But I think just also the way the draft works, MLB wants more high school players to go to college, right? They shrunk the minor leagues. The bonus pools being what they are, there's not that many high school players who get drafted. It's like under 100 high school players every year. And then a lot of those guys who do actually get drafted or who get drafted and sign, a lot of those guys who do sign for high school, like in the later rounds, a lot of them, sure, there's some guys who are over slot deals, but a lot of them are taking under slot deals or very, like AJ Ewing, I think for the Mets was a really good prospect out of high school. It was probably worth a lot more than the money he signed for, but was willing to take, under $1 million. And that's okay. If you're willing to do that, you become a lot more appealing to teams than somebody like, AJ Gracia when he was in high school in New Jersey. I really liked him, but I would talk to scouts about him in the spring that year, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I didn't see him because he wants, a ton of money," and he was right. Otherwise, he was just going to go to Duke. So if players have big signing bonus demands, or there's some pretty significant risk factors in their profile, especially with pitching, where I think teams really want high school pitching, but also, hey, like if there's pretty big red flags, you just don't have that much bonus pool money to throw around at every pitcher that you like and you would like to sign. There's just limits to what you can do as a team under the bonus pool system right now.
I just wanted to hit on really quick. You made a great point, and it's one worth acknowledging about Miguel Sime and some of these other highly touted high school guys. It's not known for a fact, and it's not a fact that they're still on the board because of an NIL deal that's in place. Like Miguel Sime to stay on it, he very well could go early tomorrow and sign for 7 figures, and that'll be that. But in my kind of getting on my soapbox and my rant was basically just saying that it definitely plays a factor, but it is not the reason why he is still on the board.
Yeah, and to be clear, go ahead.
Guys like guys can even still get drafted, and it's still a factor. Like Tyler Bell got drafted by the Rays.
Chris Lemonis too.
Got drafted, by the Brewers. And these teams, the colleges, you can only negotiate now with one team once you get drafted officially. Like, you're negotiating with other teams before the draft, but there's nothing stopping these schools from saying, hey, like, we're going to up our offer. And I think a lot of these colleges are very aggressive for these guys. I'm sure Tennessee wants Steele Hall to come to school. They know they're not going to get Steele Hall, but guys who are, falling beyond that first round range, they're making, I think, aggressive NIL pushes to try to get these players to campus. And I'm sure there'll still be some of them after the draft too, that some of these schools are going to try to say, hey, can you change your mind and come to school? We got something worked up for you here.
And I can tell you, we're talking about this from the high school perspective. This is also very relevant, if not more relevant, on the transfer portal side now. So much of recruiting at the college level is the ability to bring in talent from other D1 programs right now. We know that colleges are better when they're bringing in older players. It is proven at this point that the older player wins at a higher rate than the younger player. There are a lot of teams, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, who have guys committed who are draft eligible players. Clemson's another example that has a lot of guys who are committed who are draft eligible. And I think that this is an opportunity for these teams to come in and say, hey, we're going to be able to pay you, and you can go back into the draft next year and give it a run again. Why don't you come and stay in school? I actually think that the NIL conversation is more relevant for those guys than it is the high schoolers who we're seeing at the top of the draft, because to your point, Ben, if you're getting picked at the top of the draft as a high schooler in this day and age, in the shortened draft, shortened minor league systems age of baseball, there's a reason for that for the most part. I think with a transfer, it's a little bit different. There are a lot of college guys and older guys who are going, and it could pay to go back to school for one more year, especially players who are leveling up from mid-major to high major levels. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to leave it at yeah, absolutely, but I think that all the points you made are really good and valid, and it's all kind of part of this increasingly tricky puzzle.
Here's a question on this topic. Seth Hernandez could still go to Vanderbilt.
He could. I could fall down the stairs after I shut my laptop off after the live stream, but he's almost certain he's not going to make it to Nashville. They wouldn't have taken him 6th if they didn't know he was going to sign.
Yeah, he may visit, but that's about it.
You might fly over the campus, but
you might catch a game or two. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw the tweet. I'm going to see if I can grab it here and put it on the broadcast quickly. But Oklahoma State put something out about, thanking Ethan Holiday for his time as a Cowboy, and posted a picture of him in a uniform saying, good luck in the pro level. And I like that. I think that that's crafty, but it goes to show you, if you're picked that early, you're not going to school.
I love Ethan's time in Stillwater.
Yeah, you must be so excited as you're like, oh, we have these 2 lock players who are definitely coming to Oklahoma State, like the family ties and all that, and then you're like, oh nope, they're both just too good to come to school.
And I think that it's a good way to put a bow on this part of a conversation. Not everybody applies to this whole will he stay or go based on NIL. Like some people are not going to school. Those guys are one of them. Anybody have any final thoughts as we prepare to wrap up here from day one as we get ready for a long day 2 tomorrow? Ben, I'll go to you first here.
Yeah, we covered some of the ones, the drafts we liked the most. Any big surprises for you? I'm just trying to scroll through from the first day that really caught you by surprise. I guess one of the bigger ones for me was what the Tigers did.
Yep.
With this draft. Man, they clearly are taking high contact guys, but Jordan Yost, 24 overall.
Super early.
That one really surprised me. I think Michael Oliveto is a really interesting, sleeper-ish.
I like that one at 34.
34 is high for me.
I know it's rich. I like him.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a good player, but it's an opportunity cost of who else is available there too. So I loved what the Tigers did in 2023 with getting Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal, with McGonigal especially, and they're definitely targeting these hitterish type guys, but question how much power is going to be there from Yost. Seems more like a slap type bat. That was the draft I think surprised me the most, where I was kind of scratching my head on, maybe not scratching my head because I understand what they're doing, but just didn't like what they did.
On the individual level, I would say that I was surprised that Jamie Arnold was still available at, number 11 to the A's. I thought that he'd be off the board much sooner than that. One of the more polished guys in this draft. And maybe a good one of our last couple questions here. How do you think Jamie Arnold stacks up with the 2024 arms like Hagen Smith, Savage, and Chase Burns? Pete, I'll kind of toss it to you as we talk about this surprise.
Tough question. Because, those are 3 really, really good arms you're comparing him against. And if I say 4, which was kind of my knee-jerk reaction, I don't think it's by all that much. What all 3 of these guys have done is really, really impressive. Chase Burns already in the big leagues. Hagen Smith has fared really well in the Southern League already in Double-A. Trey Savage has been excellent for the Blue Jays this year. So right now it would be 4 of those, 4 out of 4, but it's not a huge gap, I would say, between Jamie and the others. We talked about him earlier, but plus fastball slider guy, the third pitch with him, a changeup is an above average offering. It flashes plus, strikes are there. I mean, he's got a real chance, but right now he's 4th.
All right, fellas. Well, after an hour 45 minutes, I think this has been an excellent night one show. I will say, if we didn't answer your question in this go around of our live reactions podcast, I believe, and Ben, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to come back tomorrow and do this all over again, so you can hop on back in here and ask your questions then. But for tonight, on night one of the 2025 MLB Draft, for Peter Flaherty, Ben Badler, JJ Cooper, who was with us a little bit ago, my name is Jacob Rudner, and we will see you in day 2.